Discover KDH Collective's Leaning into Therapy podcast, an enlightening exploration of therapeutic approaches and evidence-based protocols. Join us as we delve into the vast landscape of therapeutic interventions, guided by the belief that collective intelligence surpasses individual expertise. Led by Katie Holmes, a licensed professional counselor with 16 years in private practice. This series offers valuable insights, expertise, and training from a team of skilled therapists. Prepare to immerse yourself in the world of therapy, created exclusively for therapists by therapists.
Welcome to another episode of Leaning into Therapy. I'm Whitney Storey. I have a very special guest today for the first time, Brent Nicolini, one of my coworkers and someone that I adore. So, Brent, could you introduce yourself to me and the imaginary audience and tell us a little bit about who you are and how you got here?
So, my name is Brent Nicolini. I am a licensed addictions counselor and a licensed professional counselor. I got to KDH through a friend. And so if she's watching this, she knows who she is. I came into private practice because I wanted to help people with mental disorders and also with some substance use. And I have been here about a year and a half. It's been fabulous. I really love the clients that I have, and I love the people that I work with, and that's a game changer in life. And so I'm here, and I love private practice because of the learning experience. There's so much I've learned being in this like venue that you just can't get anywhere else. And so that's why I'm here, and I hope to stay here, and I hope to help more of the community.
Yeah, private practice is definitely a different kind of beast. Especially if you're coming from like an agency setting or community mental health. I think it's definitely it can be a learning experience for a lot of people. And that's something that I know we here, and I know that you and I really value is like learning and growing. And I think that's maybe not always something that therapist is into, but I really like that about us in this practice. One of the things I know about you, Brent, is that you kind of, I was about to say advertise. You don't really advertise yourself as, but you are a more direct therapist than I think some of us are. And I think that, like, in theory, I know what it means to be direct, but I wonder if you could talk a little bit about what does it mean to you to be like a direct therapist?
So it's sort of a multifaceted answer. The thing is, I came from a family, my mother and father were like, just don't lie, just don't lie. Well, I learned how to be a very good liar with my little bout of addiction.
Mm,
And when I got in recovery, you had to be brutally honest with yourself and brutally honest with the things that your behavior, right? So, in that way, I had to learn how to be honest and I had to learn how to be direct and upright and upfront with who I was and what I was doing. And I've just kind of transformed into that kind of person. When I had my child, I was that way. If there's anything, just don't lie. Just come to me and tell me the truth. And I'm just very, very direct in the room with my clients. If I see something, I'm going to say it. I'm very transparent. I don't have anything to hide. I think that was also something I learned in the recovery
mm,
process. But I also learned to be the true me and to be extremely self-aware, even on the bad stuff, because that helps me sort of be able to facilitate some change in my life. If I know that I have low air in my tire, I'll go put air in it. And so I'm just very direct. It's like I don't want this to come off in the wrong way, but I just don't have a lot of time for fiddle faddle. Let's get to
mm.
the point. Let's see what we have. Let's put things on the table and let's explore what we can do and what's going on. And that's, I think, why I'm a direct therapist. I just cut to the chase.
I think I was thinking about working specifically in private practice and how kind it is to be as direct as you are, because that means that like we can get down to business and we can get things done. And generally in private practice, people are paying a bit more than they might be in like a community mental health setting. And so it makes so much fiscal sense to be like very direct and transparent with clients. And so I bet that that's something that they really appreciate from you.
And I always let them know, listen, I'm going to say this out loud. And they're like, okay, okay. So we both agree. It's not like I just come charging you. I'll let them know this is what I do. This is who I am.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm not your cup of tea, I can refer you to many, many great therapists. And I always let them know that, like in the intake session. I get it. Not everybody's going to like me, and I'm not going to love everybody. And if the rapport's not there, then you have to let me know. Just be honest with me.
I think that's such an important part of starting therapy for clients to know, because I think it's something that nobody necessarily ever says out loud, is that like starting with a new therapist is kind of like dating, and how like it might seem like this is a good fit, but then when you start working together, you're like, actually, this might not be a good fit, and how that's like okay, and that's good. And therapists won't get their feelings hurt if you're not the right fit. Yeah. And I think there's this idea too out there that like being direct is like mean. And that's not how I hear it from you. That like being direct is a service. Being direct is, I don't know, it requires so much therapeutic skill, I think, to be as direct as you are.
I wouldn't, I don't come across as mean because that's just not kind of who I am in the room. But I always let them know, this is what, if I see something, I'm probably going to say something and you can agree or disagree. We need to just try to understand one another and learn about one another. And that takes time. Directness doesn't have to be mean. It's just honest. I always people say be vulnerable. I think that being vulnerable is equivalent to being honest. It's not equivalent to
Hmm.
being meek or weak. It's about honesty, right? So I'm vulnerable in the room, and I hope my clients can be vulnerable as well.
Oh, that's such a good way to put it. That's a really good frame for it. That like we're not, when we're talking about being direct, we're not talking about being mean. We're not talking about being harmful. We're talking about like really vulnerable honesty on the part of not just the client, but it sounds like first the vulnerable honesty comes from you as a therapist, and you kind of like invite the client to come along into that.
Yeah. And also, role modeling that. So if I'm vulnerable and they ask questions, I'll give you I'll tell you the answer. So yeah,
Yeah, that's really
vulnerability,
nice.
it's important.
I'm thinking about like this ideal client, and kind of like I can see the client like being built as we're talking, of somebody that would be potentially really drawn to the directness that you offer in this really vulnerable and loving way. I'm imagining similar to some of my clients, like growing up and feeling very unsure and questioning themselves a lot, in that, like, having an experience with someone who is very direct and warm, how like reinforcing and like rebuilding that could be for a client who is more, I don't know, like just unsure. And I'm also thinking about the people who, like, I don't know, business people who are direct and value directness in their work, and how meeting with a therapist, I think sometimes people think it's going to be like warm fuzzy and kumbaya and like meditative. And I could see like someone who values directness in their work also being surprised and really excited about directness in the therapy too.
So directness, the good thing about it is, and I come from that place where I waffled a lot about who I was, what I was doing, and
Yes.
where I fit in the world, and I had extremely low self-worth and esteem. And so I had to learn how to communicate with myself. And so that's where I had to learn how to be direct and honest. And when people come into therapy and they struggle with the same things, I always tell them I would never ask you to do anything that I haven't done myself. And so when people come in and they're waffling about, well, I mean, but no, but well, no, let's approach this from an angle. I use a lot of DBT, a lot of CBT, a lot of behavioral therapy, um, because I think sometimes if you can start changing those thoughts, you can change your behaviors and the way you think about yourself and the way you communicate with yourself. So you have to be direct with yourself too. If you're waffling, well, maybe I don't need to do this. I mean, I was an extreme pushover and I would just say yes to everybody.
Mm,
Today, I have no problem just saying no, and I don't have to tell you why I said no, and I had to learn how to communicate that, and I had to learn how to do that without feeling guilty or less than, or you know what I mean? So directness, I think, cuts through that waffling and that uncertainty in the client and helps them to start to have some straightforward talk with themselves.
hmm. Man, that's so good. There's I've been in conversations before with other therapists about I would describe my style of therapy as being like very relational, but talking about what that means and what it looks like sometimes can be really difficult. The way that you describe your directness feels very relational. Like, I think relational therapy can look lots of different ways. And this is like your flavor of relational therapy is definitely a unique flavor. I, I did not expect that a direct style of therapy would feel that relational, but I really think it does.
It's funny you bring that up. A client and I were just talking about the relational aspects of our rapport in
Mm,
therapy. And and we were talking about people in life where they're just not relational. You can't relate. So uh you can't tap into the message that you're trying to give, right? So I think relational, it's funny because we I was just talking about that yesterday, and how important that is. And people who are relational in my own life, right? We were talking about doctors, like my doctor, my PCB, I gotta relate to that man. And he
mhm.
has to make sense to me, and I have to have that rapport with him too, and with other people in my life. So it's very important to me. It is. It's very, very important to me. It you build on that relationship because there's something, a common denominator that you share, right? There's something in that relationship. And I think that's very, very important. And that's, I think, where you start to kind of build rapport in the therapeutic relationship when you can be totally relational with your client.
Yes, yes. And the predictability of your like vulnerable honesty. Like that feels very safe to me as a human being. Like I don't have to wonder like just literally me as a human with you as a human. Like I don't have to wonder how you feel about me or how you think about me because you are so open, so honest, so direct about it. And so I think, for people who are considering therapy and wondering like what kind of therapist is right for me, like I think hearing you talk about this, hearing this conversation, I think will give them so much clarity around who you are and what your style of directness is like, and how safe and how genuinely loving it is to have someone in your life like you who will be so direct, so specific, and so warm and caring at the same time. You're such a unique mix of things, Brent.
Well, thank you, Whitney. I think that genuineness is top. It's that's in part of integrity, right? I have to be who I am, right? And like I said, not all people have to accept it. But the thing is the beautiful dynamic that always happens in this space is that, and you know this, and this also happens in recovery. While I'm helping my client, I also help myself at the same time because it's that interaction of like communion of two people coming together, and I learn as I help you. And that's the beautiful thing about being a therapist, I think, is that, man, I just continue to learn every day, and about myself. I had some people come in and I was like, oh man, I learned so much about myself and I'm trying to help other people. Sometimes it's even if it's just to call myself out on some stuff. You know what? Wait a
Mm,
minute. Maybe I need to be doing that too. That genuineness I think is really important, and that authenticity as well.
This is such a good, this whole podcast, this whole video is such a good way for people to get to know you. And I'm excited about the clients who are going to come your way after hearing and seeing this conversation. I think like the other little thing that I wondered about as we're kind of like getting into this idea of like, who is Brent? Let's introduce Brent to the community. Um, I know some things that could be answers to this question for you, but like, what besides therapy, besides work, what else do you love to do?
So I'm an avid swimmer, very
Hmm.
disciplined in that aspect. It's the element of water. I've done it since I was a child. It's what I do to escape.
Hmm.
I need self-care. I love to swim. I donate a lot of my time doing it. It can be a social venue where I can talk to people in the other lane, or I don't have to, and I can just keep swimming. So you have that choice. Um, I'm really big on every night. Once I walk my dog, I go on a mindful walk. Does it include music? Sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't. And I just like to hear crickets and birds and the smell of bread and everybody cooking in my neighborhood. I'm fortunate to live in a neighborhood with old oaks. And so it's just beautiful. So every night I do a mindful walk. I have to do it just so I can kind of decompress and let go and restart and reset. I am an advocate for self-care. And if you talk to any one of my clients, they will say that's one thing that I always tell them that you need to do. You have to be able to fill your own cup to give it to
Hmm.
somebody else. You just have to. As a mother, as a friend, as a therapist, as just anybody, I have to be able to fill my own cup so I can go help other people. You can't drive a car on empty. You just can't. So, and it becomes very difficult. That's when burnout happens and
Hmm.
you're struggling in a lot of things. So I do a lot of very mindful things because it helps me I have to cope with life too, and what life throws at me every day as well.
Well, this was
So,
very fun. I've really enjoyed getting, I can't even say like getting to know you. It's like kind of building texture to what I know about you as a human and as a therapist.
and
So
thank
I've,
you, Whitney, because you're very easy to talk to. You're very relatable. And that's why when we were doing this, I said, no, Whitney, it has to be the person because anybody else, I probably would have had a little bit of anxiety about it.
not the stage fright, not the hating being perceived. Well, thank you so much, Brent.
Thank you, Whitney.
And we hope to see the rest of y'all very soon.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of Leaning into Therapy. If you'd like to follow along, you can catch our other episodes. You can also find more information about us as a practice at kdholmeslpc.com. Hope to see you soon.